The moment my dad died, everything I thought I had slipped right through my fingers. I thought losing him was the worst blow I'd ever get. But then my uncle showed me how deep betrayal could cut. One day I was his son's right hand in the family business. The next he fired me without a second thought. Just like that, he took the CEO spot for himself and left me out in the cold. No warning, no mercy, and no damn explanation. I didn't just lose a job, I lost my home, my future, everything. And now, I'm left with one burning question. How do you get revenge on the man who stole your life the day your father died? My name is Emma. If you'd asked me a year ago where I'd be today, I would have told you I was on track to take over the family business my dad built with his bare hands. I grew up watching him grind, watching how he never took shortcuts. How every late night, every sacrifice, was about giving me a future. But nothing in that life prepared me for the day he died. Nothing prepared me for what came after. When I was 7, my mom died in a fire. It was the kind of tragedy that breaks a family apart, or at least, that's what I thought. For us, it made Dad double down. He became this force of nature, building the company from scratch to something real and lasting. He didn't just want to provide for me. He wanted me to inherit a legacy, a business he created out of nothing. He started small, selling parts out of his garage, doing deliveries himself when no one else would. People laughed at him back then, said he was crazy to think he could make it big. But he didn't care. He believed in hard work and grit more than anything. Year after year, he fought to grow the company, building relationships, making deals, sweating every detail. He poured everything into it. And I watched, learning everything I could because I wanted to carry that fire. By the time I was in my early 20s, I was running day-to-day operations alongside him. We were a team. People looked at me like I was the future, like this was my birthright. I believed that too. My dad wasn't a man who trusted easily. But family was family. When the company started growing, he knew he needed help. So he brought in my uncle, his brother, to be his right hand. At first, it made sense. 2 brothers working together to build something bigger than themselves. My uncle had experience in business, a sharp mind for numbers, and the kind of charisma that could open doors. Dad thought having family close would keep things honest, keep the company safe. But I should have seen the cracks early on. My uncle wasn't like Dad, where Dad worked with quiet grit. My uncle played the game differently, charm and manipulation over sweat and sacrifice. He smiled like he was on your side, but I started noticing things. Deals that felt off. Meetings behind closed doors. A coldness in the way he looked at me, like I was just an obstacle in his way. Dad never saw it. Or maybe he refused to. I guess when you're family, you want to believe the best. So, Uncle came in as the trusted partner, the guy who would carry the company forward alongside Dad. But all along, he was watching, waiting. A few months after the company finally started getting the recognition it deserved, winning that big industry award and landing a massive contract, I thought maybe things were finally turning. Dad was proud. We all were. It felt like the hard work was paying off. Like we were unstoppable. That life doesn't work that way. Dad fell sick. Not just a cold or something minor, he got seriously sick. We're talking about the kind of illness that takes hold and won't let go. The doctors were clear. Without expensive treatment, his chances were slim. But when we turned to the company to cover the costs, that's when things got twisted. My uncle took over managing the financial side, while Dad was bedridden. That's when I saw his true colors. He started cutting off funds for Dad's treatment funds that should have been there without question. I begged him, pleaded, but he wouldn't budge. Said the company couldn't afford it. That money had to go toward more important business expenses. like a contract that would fatten the company's pockets, that didn't save my dad. Watching him turn his back on family was like a punch to the gut. I kept thinking maybe he was just protecting the company. But now I know he was protecting himself, his grip on power. And while Dad wasted away, my uncle was busy positioning himself as the man in charge. The same man who would soon fire me and take everything away. When Dad finally passed, the company was already slipping from my hands. My uncle wasted no time. He called me into the office like it was just another routine meeting. And I could feel it in the air. This wasn't going to be routine. He looked at me with that fake sympathy, like he was doing me a favor. Then he dropped the bomb. I was fired. Just like that. No explanation. No chance to fight back. The same uncle who promised to protect the family legacy was wiping me out of the picture, taking the CEO chair for himself like it was his birthright. With my job gone, so was everything else. The house I grew up in, the savings Dad left behind, it all vanished. My uncle made sure of it. I had nowhere to go, nothing left to stand on. Homeless wasn't just a word anymore. It was my reality. The nights spent in cheap motels, the cold floors, and the constant stress started catching up with me. My body wasn't built to handle this kind of beating. I got sick bad enough that I needed real medical help, treatment I couldn't afford on my own. But when I reached out to my uncle, hoping for even a shred of mercy or support, he shut the door in my face. He didn't just say no. He made it clear I was dead weight, a liability he wanted nothing to do with. The man who once called himself family refused to lift a finger when I was at my lowest, sick and desperate. That rejection cut deeper than anything else. I realized then that my uncle wasn't just trying to take the company. He wanted to break me completely. One night, after days of barely eating anything decent, I dragged myself out to a little cafe a few blocks from the cheap motel where I was crashing. I needed something real, something to remind me I was still alive, even if everything else was falling apart. The place was small and quiet, nothing fancy, but the smell of fresh coffee and baked bread hit me like a lifeline. I sat there alone, barely touching my food. My mind was racing, replaying the way my uncle betrayed me, how Dad had slipped away, how every door slammed shut. My face was pale, my hands trembling slightly from exhaustion and sickness I could no longer ignore. The cafe's warmth couldn't reach the cold pit growing inside me. When I finally left, the night was thick and heavy. I walked slowly, lost in thought, barely registering the sounds of the city around me. My eyes were fixed on the cracked sidewalk beneath my feet. I didn't see the car until it was too late. The headlights came blazing toward me, bright and unforgiving. I heard the screech of tires, but it was already too late. The impact knocked me off my feet, and I slammed hard onto the pavement. Pain, exploding through my body like wildfire. I tasted blood and grit as my head hit the concrete, and everything went dizzy and dark around the edges. I heard shouting, footsteps running toward me. Someone was yelling for an ambulance, another voice, telling me to stay awake. But I was barely holding on. My vision blurred, and the cold night air felt like it was sucking the life out of me. Lying there, broken and bleeding, I thought maybe this was the end. Maybe this was how it was supposed to go, another casualty in a family torn apart. When I finally woke up, the world was blurry and cold. My head throbbed, and every breath felt heavy. I opened my eyes slowly, squinting against the harsh hospital lights. Sitting right beside me was a man I barely knew, late 50s, tired eyes, a face lined with regret or maybe guilt. He looked up the moment I stirred, his hand twitching like he wasn't sure what to do. Before I could say anything, he reached for the nurse's call button. Within minutes, a doctor hurried in, flipping through my chart and checking my vitals with practiced urgency. I tried to clear my throat, my voice barely a whisper. Who are you? I managed to ask, eyes locked on the man beside me. Swallowed hard, then looked at the doctor before answering. I'm the one who hit her, he said quietly, almost like he was confessing to something worse than the accident itself. That's when it hit me like a freight train. I started crying hot, uncontrollable tears burning down my cheeks. I can't feel my legs, I said, panic rising in my voice, twisting my gut. The words came out raw and desperate, a mixture of fear and anger. And then I lost it. I cursed my uncle, the man who stole everything from me, who let my father die without help. I cursed the man in front of me, the one who nearly killed me when I had nothing left. I cursed the world that had pushed me to this point, lying broken and powerless on a hospital bed. I wasn't just angry. I was shattered. I was going to make them pay. Every last one of them. That night, the hospital room felt colder than ever. I lay curled up on the stiff bed, tears falling like a steady rain, soaking into the thin hospital sheets beneath me. I wasn't just crying for the pain in my body. I was crying for everything I'd lost, the life I thought I had, the future I dreamed of, and the simple things that now felt impossible. I thought about Dad, how he'd worked his whole life to build this company, to build a future for me. I thought about Mom, the fire that took her so young, and how it had left us both broken and alone. And now, with my legs gone and my world crashing down, I was left wondering what the hell was left for me at all. My body shook with sobs I couldn't hold back. The weight of it pressed on my chest like a stone, and I just let myself fall apart. Because, for once, I didn't have to pretend. Then, the door creaked open, soft and hesitant, pulling me out of my dark spiral. I barely had the strength to lift my head, but I saw him, the man who had changed everything, the man who'd hit me on that god-awful night. He walked in slowly, shoulders slumped as if carrying the weight of the world. His face was older than I remembered, lines of stress and regret marking every inch. His eyes didn't hold the usual arrogance or indifference. They were raw, tired. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there awkwardly for a moment, like he wasn't sure if he should even be there. Then, with a voice low and rough, he finally spoke. "I'm sorry," he said. "I lost a huge deal, the one that could have saved my company. I misused funds, stupid mistakes, desperate moves. It cost me everything. I was drowning in debt, on the edge of bankruptcy. That night, I went out to drink, to escape it all, and ... and I hit you." His words hung in the air, heavy and clumsy. I could see the genuine pain behind them, but it didn't make it any easier to hear. He took a shaky step closer, as if hoping for something from me, maybe forgiveness, maybe a chance to explain himself. But all I could do was stare at the ceiling and let the tears fall harder. I said nothing. No anger, no words. Just that crushing silence filled with loss and pain. He shifted awkwardly, clearly not knowing what else to say. I didn't care, because at that moment, no apology was enough. No excuse could fix what was broken. A month went by. I was stuck in that hospital bed, feeling worse every day. The pain, the frustration, everything was piling up. Then Mark Reynolds, the guy who hit me, showed up with an offer. Mark wasn't just some random guy. He was a millionaire CEO with a company big enough to crush me in court if I sued. So instead of going through all that, he said he'd pay all my hospital bills and take care of me at his place. He had maids and caregivers ready to help me. At first, I wanted to refuse. Accepting help from the guy who almost killed me felt wrong. But I didn't have a choice. The bills were stacking up and I needed care. So I agreed. When I got to his house, it was huge. Fancy and clean, with people who barely even looked at me. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a hotel where I was just another guest. The caregivers helped me with everything, getting dressed, moving around, even just sitting up. Back at the company my dad built, things started falling apart fast. My uncle took over, but he didn't know what he was doing, or maybe he did, just not for the company. He started messing things up, making bad decisions, and stealing money for himself. His wife lived like a queen, spending like there was no tomorrow. Expensive cars, fancy clothes, parties, it was all on the company's dime. Even his daughter acted like she owned the place, a spoiled brat who got whatever she wanted. No questions asked. And my uncle? He gave it to them all. No limits. Meanwhile, the business my dad worked so hard for was bleeding money and losing its grip. One night, I was wheeling myself down the long hallway of Mark Reynolds' house, restless and bored like always. I wasn't expecting to hear anything worth my time. Then I caught voices coming from the study. The door wasn't fully closed. Mark was on the phone, his voice low but sharp, talking business. I slowed down, trying to catch what I could. "I've been watching the Parker Group for months now," he said. "With that man running it, it's a mess. Mismanagement, money disappearing. I've got insiders feeding me everything. It's right for the taking." That was my dad's company, the Parker Group. The very business my father built from the ground up, and that my uncle had stolen from me. Mark kept talking, explaining how buying the Parker Group would be a smart move for his own company. It would bring in new investors and give him a solid foothold in the market. He sounded confident, like he knew this was a sure thing. When he hung up the phone, I didn't hesitate. I pushed myself down the hall, every muscle aching, but I had to talk to him. He looked up, surprised to see me in his study. I didn't waste time. "I know everything about the Parker Group," I said, voice steady even if my hands shook. "I can help you buy the company, seal the deal. But there's one condition." Mark raised an eyebrow, clearly interested. "I want 40% of the shares. That's what my dad owned before he died. And I want to be made CEO if I help you close the deal. I know the company inside and out. Without me, you won't get it done right." He leaned back, thinking. I could see the gears turning in his head. He owed me, no doubt about it. I was the one disabled because of him. Plus, owning the Parker Group would make his company more attractive to investors. Everyone would benefit. After a moment, he nodded. "All right," he said. "You've got a deal." Once Mark and I had our deal, I got to work. I knew the Parker Group inside and out, every department, every contract, every weakness. I had spent years alongside my dad running the place. Mark had his own people feeding him information from the inside. But what made the difference was having me on the team. My uncle was reckless. He didn't care about building a legacy or keeping the company strong. All he wanted was quick money, pocketing funds, making dumb decisions that were slowly sinking the business. That meant the company was vulnerable, in ways no outsider could have known without help. We started putting the pieces together. I tipped Mark off about contracts that could be renegotiated, vendors who were ready to jump ship, and departments falling apart because of unpaid bills. I gave him the dirt on the financial mess my uncle had created, the ones nobody else saw. At the same time, Mark used his power and money to reach out to shareholders and key players. Many were frustrated with my uncle's management and ready for a change. It didn't take long before the tide turned against him. Less than a month later, the deal was done. Mark Reynolds officially bought the Parker Group. My uncle was forced out, his control wiped clean. It wasn't pretty, But it was quick. I played my cards right. I used everything I knew to make sure the deal went through fast and clean. The company was saved, not by my uncle's greed, but because someone cared enough to fight for it. After the deal was signed and Mark Reynolds officially took control of the Parker Group, something unexpected happened. Instead of holding on to everything for himself, Mark handed over the keys literally and figuratively to me. He called me into his office and placed a thick folder on the desk. Inside were the signed documents giving me full control of my 40% shares, along with papers for the house my dad had built, the one my uncle had kicked me out of during that small party he threw with his friends. I stared at the documents, the weight of everything crashing down on me all at once. I couldn't hold back the tears. I cried my eyes out right there, overwhelmed by the moment. I looked up at Mark, my voice shaking. "Thank you," I said simply. He nodded, his expression serious but calm. "I know what it means," he said quietly, "to have everything you own taken from you. I've been there too." He told me about his ex-wife, how she had run off with his daughter to be with another man, taking nearly everything he had in their messy divorce. She was greedy, he said, never really loved me, and I lost almost everything because of it. For a moment, we both sat in silence. Two people broken in different ways, but understanding what it felt like to lose everything to those you trusted. Then Mark looked at me and said, "You deserve to take it back. This is yours." After everything was settled and the deal was official, I got word that my uncle wanted to meet the new owner of the Parker Group. His exact words were, "I want to know who I'm handing the family legacy over to." That line alone told me everything I needed to know. He thought this was just a formality, like I was some outsider who'd quickly be pushed aside. The day of the meeting, I was rolled into the boardroom in my wheelchair. My uncle was there, sitting with that smug look he always wore, like he still thought he was the one in charge. His wife and daughter were with him, looking all polished and entitled, but I saw the flicker of doubt in their eyes when they saw me. When the introductions were made, I was clear and confident. "I'm Emma Parker," I said, voice steady, "the new owner and executive stakeholder of the Parker Group." My uncle's face froze. His eyes widened, the smugness slipping away like smoke. He clearly didn't expect it to be me. His wife bit her lip, and his daughter looked away, clearly uncomfortable. I didn't give him a chance to speak. I reached out my hand for a handshake, firm, unyielding. As our hands met, I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You, your wife, and your daughter have 2 days to vacate the house. I'm moving back in, and I promise you this, I won't make it as hard on you as you made it for me." The days after that meeting were a whirlwind. My uncle and his family packed up, disappearing out of the house, and out of my life the way they should have long ago. Walking back into that home felt like stepping into a new chapter. One I fought tooth and nail to claim with the Parker Group back where it belonged. I threw myself into rebuilding what Dad had started, and fixing the damage my uncle had caused. It wasn't easy. There were still battles to fight, old contracts to renegotiate, scared employees to reassure, and a mountain of debt to tackle. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was steering the ship. Mark Reynolds kept his word, giving me space to lead while backing me when I needed it. Our deal wasn't just business. It was a second chance for both of us to right the wrongs in our lives. I'm not pretending the road ahead is smooth. Losing my mobility changed everything, and the scars, both physical and emotional, will always be there. But I've learned something important. Strength isn't about never falling. It's about standing up every single time you get knocked down. This is my life now. My fight. My legacy. And no one is taking that from me again. If this story hit you the way it hit me, don't just scroll past. Subscribe and hit that like button, because stories like Emma's deserve to be heard. And I want to know, if you were in her shoes, facing that kind of betrayal and fight, what would you do? Drop your real thoughts in the comments. Let's keep this conversation honest and raw. Thanks for watching.